too often when we talk about, all right, overall player development with strength and speed and mental performance. Let's pick our top two ECNL teams, one on the boys, one on the girls, or start there. We'll see how it goes. Oh, and let's do it for 2 weeks.
Dave, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me. I love being on your show.
Yeah, and every Friday we record, so I always look forward to these mornings because we always have so much to discuss about athlete development, and that's actually the topic today is player development and when should female athletes be on the best team? When should they maybe go down a level? And how can parents really assess the best team for her to be on for her development as a player? But I know you like this one also as a human being. So, where do you want to start with this topic?
Um, well, we also wrote we collabed on a blog recently. So I think there might be some topics in there we could go over that lead up to, what's the best scenario for her now, and then as we look forward. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and I was so glad you put this to our blog. So for those of you who might not have seen it yet, Eric and I did our second blog actually on, do you really know what long-term player development is? Because we see that all the time, and it's really starting to look and feel like a marketing ploy, right? It's such a buzz word or phrase to say, oh, we're all about long-term player development and holistic training and all these different things. And for one, I'm learning that most clubs, not all, um, aren't equipped to do it, right? To give the kids what they actually need. But there was one thing that stood out that you wrote, and it had to do with the European system because you and I are also big proponents of sampling other sports when kids are younger as much as possible. And not to get into that exact topic because people like to debate, whether they should or they shouldn't, how many sports and two sports during the same season and all that. It's a big topic, but people, well, in Europe, they don't do that. Well, because in the European system, this is what a lot of people don't know. In the European system, kids are getting all the other developmental things they need within their club system. So they're getting the foundational motor skills and athleticism and coordination that is needed to be a better athlete overall and to mitigate all the issues that come along with early specialization as we experience it in the United States. So I didn't know if you actually wanted to expound on that one a little bit. I just loved that you almost led with that as part of our blog.
I love talking about this because I really admire a lot of what the European youth soccer academies are doing. And I've actually had a lot of these sports scientists and strength coaches who work at these clubs on my podcast. I've also had researchers in growth and maturation who discuss the amazing work that they're doing in these youth academies. So, Sean Cumming, for example, he's been on my podcast. What he's doing is so incredible, and they're educating the clubs in Europe on what goes on during the growth spurt and why do kids need other movements that are different than what happens in soccer. And since a lot of these young soccer players in Europe are, we could consider them early specializers because they are playing year round at these academies. Well, Sean said, well, we're just trying to balance that out because we know they're playing soccer year round, but we give them moments of other motor skill development And a lot of these academies actually have built jungle gyms and these gymnastic like facilities where these young soccer players can go on monkey bars or do tumbling and just work different muscle groups during those growth spurt years so that they're not overusing it and getting things like severs or Slaughter, and they're really developing into well-rounded athletes while also being pretty much full-time soccer players. So I think that's a great solution to all of this. I think it really is true long-term athletic development, keeping our kids healthy first and foremost. And yeah, it's amazing. And I think we've talked about this before that we can't really change year-round soccer at this point. Youth travel
Right.
soccer in the United States and worldwide, it's pretty much year-round now. It's not going to change because it's private equity backed, there's stakeholders involved, and people just want to keep the money flowing in. So, what's the most realistic solution to this? And it's clubs investing in these athletic development programs where kids are getting exposure to different motor skills and building different muscle groups, working on balance and coordination and spatial awareness. So, I think that's a great solution. And I wrote in the blog that I just wish clubs in the US invested in these things rather than,
Mm.
having the most expensive uniforms or hiring expensive videographers just to have great social media and all these hype
Mhm.
videos. It's like maybe we
Yeah.
should focus on the development first and making sure our kids are becoming the best athletes they can be, the healthiest athletes they can be. And yeah, that's why I had to open the blog with it because I think the European academies are solving this year-round problem and they're doing it right.
Yeah, and I do believe, well, first of all, I'm sold. Like that was, we should just package that and just, have a PSA across the United States to hopefully wake some people up because, and what I love that you said is solution because you and I do uh, rail against a lot of the inconsistencies and what we feel is incorrect in terms of player development in this country because we're trying to bring light to it, right? But on the other side, what are some possible solutions? And what it really takes, though, is a growth mindset, an open mindset from clubs in the club system to take a look at that. Where from where sit, what I see is no, we're just going to tack on more tournaments. We're going to tack on more practices. We're going to tack on more skills training. So it seems as if it's getting worse, and it's really interesting in what you said because I'm a part of a project right now, and we're doing a pilot with a club who um and I mentioned this because you mentioned private equity, and so right now we are speaking with their board, their leadership team of this particular club because we're just trying to get them to be patient. So, what we're helping out with is the mental performance side of the game and then how that translates to the physical performance side of it. And then, of course, once we get to that point and there's a better connection with their teams, we can implement the physical side a little bit more in terms of strength and speed and that kind of stuff. But it's interesting because even with private equity and things like that, like they're looking at numbers and they're not looking at the overall, sometimes intangible increases or improvements with young athletes as they age and get older. And I'll give you a perfect example. One of the teams we were working with, um, and it's all online, but like we were asking for some engagement and we're asking about what they're feeling on the field at times. And it was interesting because one of the kids, we asked him specifically to speak, kind of put him on the spot. But we talked about like sometimes you're on the spot on the field and we know it's uncomfortable, but so is it's when you make a bad pass or you miss, a little tap in for a goal that you should have in a 0-0 game. That's uncomfortable too. But what he said was interesting. He said, I feel like when I make a mistake, I'm so aware of it, and so are my teammates. I feel like what we all need to do a better job at, and this was U17, is lift each other up. And I was like, that's so important because it came from a teammate. It didn't come from a coach saying, come on, boys, we have to communicate more. Right. And this is all part, the reason I'm saying this is all part of player development. Right. And I think in this country, we think it's either, and this is part of what I wrote about in our blog collab, it's either well being or performance. It's either development or the kid's overall well being. And it's not, they coexist and they're not mutually exclusive and they can be trained and developed at the same time. And I feel like if I were to put it in a little box with a bow on it, our biggest issue in this country with youth soccer, especially privatized youth soccer, is we've separated the two. We haven't integrated long-term development overall into the programming. And I get it. Coaches are there to coach the game technically and tactically to help the kids grow within the game. But it really isn't difficult to do both. And you just illustrated a perfect example. Imagine out of, typically the club players that we work with, meaning you and I, minimum of 3 practices a week. Imagine if one of the practices for, say, a U10 or U12 game was on just overall athleticism. They're climbing on monkey bars in a jungle gym, and they have obstacle courses, and they're playing hopscotch, and the stuff that really helps them overall, individually. And there's like their second sport, so to speak, at least once a week.
Yeah.
But my other point was it really takes open-minded individuals to try it first, or open-minded clubs to try it first and then to stick with it. Because the other issue is like, if it's speed development, okay, we're going to do a 2 week pilot with you, Dave. I'm like, great, that's a great start. And I've done that for clubs. Speed takes a long time. And the way that I've approached it, I'm starting to approach it with clubs and DOCs and certainly coaches and parents is, can you imagine if we changed everything and we said, okay, your daughter Erica is going to practice with us once a week with no games on the weekends? How long is it going to take for Erica to develop as a soccer player, just as a soccer player? The same thing must be said and understood when it comes to speed, mental performance, agility, strength. It's a long-term process, coordination. We can't just expect, I love when you talk about ACLs, a cute little program that we do, twice, standing on one leg, and think, okay, that's ACL, injury reduction, or we're gonna skip and play once a week, or have a recovery session once, and that's long-term player development. I just think we need to somehow meet clubs where they are and educate as much as we can, which is why we did the blog, right? And why we're talking about it now.
Hey guys, just want to take a quick moment to shout out our sponsor, Simply Faster, and one of my favorite speed timing systems from them, the Freelap. I use it for my own sprint training as well as for my athletes, and they love it. It's super easy to set up, you can take it to the field on your own, and you can get accurate speed times to track your progress. Check the Freelap link in the caption below to start adding timing into your speed sessions. If you know me, you know I love my Freelap. If you're serious about speed, it's time to start timing.
Yeah, and you really touched on the importance of just the consistency piece of developing all aspects of a player. And I think a lot of clubs do a good job with obviously the tactical and technical piece, although I am pretty critical of some of the technical stuff that's going on, but we won't go there today.
Yeah, I
But
just think
the
it's lacking, but go ahead. Yeah.
it is, yeah. But I really think that physical piece where we are developing our kids into well-rounded athletes, we're building all muscle groups, and then when girls are older, we're really chasing strength relative to body weight and progressing. And I think that's one of the biggest misses. And I wrote in the blog my criticism of club-wide strength coaches. And here's the thing, I'm happy that clubs have someone at a minimum. That's great. But I just don't see how one person can cover the physical piece for an entire club. And oftentimes they're not too. This
Mm,
club-wide strength coach is working with maybe just the older girls or the ECNL teams. And then the younger and lower level teams don't even get a strength coach. So there's that. But I
mm,
really see a big issue with the club-wide strength coach. The programming it's so watered down because first, the
mm,
club-wide strength coach only gets maybe 30 minutes a week with his teams. So he's left doing just some circuit that was thrown together a few minutes before the session, whether they're doing just a core circuit or upper body, or they're just
right,
running through zigzag cones and calling it agility. And there's no progression involved. There's no tracking of
mm,
weights. I've had some of my girls at these clubs tell me that they do a 20-pound goblet squat every week for the past 8 months. So our girls aren't truly building strength. They aren't
right,
truly becoming resilient to ACL injuries. And my suggestion in the article is look, clubs should also have a referral network of trusted, certified strength and conditioning professionals in their area to refer their athletes to. And look, I get they want their girls training with their guy or their girl, but they can't cover the whole club at quality. It's not quality
right.
programming, and the girls aren't getting individual attention. They don't have a customized program based on who they are, their training age, injury history, exercise history. It's just not customized and it's not individualized. So I think clubs, they should really build that referral network because there's so many athletes to go around.
Right.
Obviously, like I can't work with every athlete. So some
Hmm.
girls might need to go to another strength coach down the street, and that's okay. If the
Right.
health and the development of the player is first and foremost, there would be this referral network of strength and conditioning professionals where clubs say, hey, go to this person for this, go to this person and progress and work on your fitness. Clubs love to say, oh, work on your fitness, and they give no real solution. Well, give the girl a certified strength coach who can really develop her and spend that individual time
Right.
with her instead of having this watered down workout circuit once a week for 30 minutes where there's no progression happening. And
Hmm.
get this, this is the kicker, Dave. I have had parents complain to me, oh my gosh, we have a club-wide strength coach, but there's the most ACLs we've ever seen at our club. And I'm
Hmm.
like, well, that's the problem because it's not a true strength program. They're not
Right.
progressing and they're not gaining strength relative to body weight. They're not being taught how to jump and land properly. They're not being taught how to change direction properly. There's no quality programming. So I'm not surprised, even with a club-wide strength coach, ACLs are still increasing. That's the
I
problem.
agree. Yeah, I agree 100%. To spin it positive, at least in that case, it's somewhat of a start, right? But they need to take the next step. Something else you said was really, really important for people to understand. Um, and I've experienced this, and I know you have. I've been contracted by so many clubs because like they contact me and they're like, "Oh, we wanted, do speed and agility, whatever." I'm okay. All right, it's a start. We'll get in the door and then we'll try to build it into something that's substantial. They always want to start with one or two teams, and it's
Yep.
their top teams.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's backwards. The best coaches are coaching the best kids. Not only that, I won't just say it that way. I feel like if you're going to hire a strength coach, hire a qualified strength coach that knows how to develop younger athletes. And this is where it can make a huge impact because the younger the child, the more non-specific the programming should be, right? So if I go into a club and I had my wishes, or I could do exactly what I want, I would say, no, I want to start with boys and girls, U10 and under every single team because the programming is it's much more non-specific. It's more general athleticism. It's stuff the coaches could also start to teach as well as part of their warm-ups and part of their normal practice sessions, right? There's no need for U8, U10, or in my opinion, even U12 female to have, like grinding training sessions in soccer 3 times a week. And that's all they do with zero, the two-line warm up. It's such crap.
Hmm.
Like they're not warming up. If you watch them, the individual movements and their dynamic warm-ups aren't bad. We're all doing them, but they're not paying attention. They're not focused on it. It's not intentional. Like, so things like crawling, rolling, skipping, all coordination enhancing activities for your youngest athletes, if they can retain those kids in their club by the time they are U16, U17, U18, they're better, more resilient athletes, which will mean they're also better soccer players, right? But we need to start from the beginning. But too often when we talk about, all right, overall player development with strength and speed and mental performance, we're just gonna let's pick our top two ECNL teams, one on the boys, one on the girls, or whatever it is. Start there. We'll see how it goes. Oh, and let's do it for 2 weeks.
Hmm.
But I can't give you measurable results in 2 weeks. I've worked with one club that was open enough to give us an entire fall season with their top four teams. And my staff and I would go to their practice sessions. And what they did was they added time to their practice sessions on the days that we were there so we could do our thing for 45 minutes. And then they still had 45 minutes to an hour, at least on that one day. And we did track progress. We did pre and post testing, and the numbers were insane after the fall season, including we tracked injuries year to year. Do you think we were re-signed for the spring season? No. So basically 3 months, and we only got a small sampling, and those teams only were allowed to be with us once a week. And some of the kids, yeah, they did end up coming, to the gym. So some of them were getting twice, but it's like three months and we're done. That's not player development. I don't know what that was. In a way, it was a waste of the club's money, right?
I will say, David, it's good that you got 3 months out of them. I mean, like you said, you
Right.
track the progress. You can change someone in that amount of time. But again, beyond that, there still needs to be that continued development. At the very least, I think it was good to at least expose these players that,
Hmm.
if they want to do extra with you at your facility, then go for it. And they get the results from the long-term physical development. And I've seen that too. When I was working in Baltimore, Maryland, we had contracted with a high-level club in the state of Maryland, and a lot of the players did additional work with us at our gym. And we had a staff of 5 strength coaches where we could really personalize these bigger groups. So we had the bandwidth, but we had extra girls coming in for 2 sessions a week, and they did it for the full year. And they got massive results. And I
Hmm.
do want to come back to that about tracking progress because that is true development. You have to have objective data to see if someone's actually developing. And this probably bothers you too, but one thing that really irks me is when players will get their evaluation sheet from
Right.
their club coach at the end of the season, and it's always, you need to improve your fitness, you need to improve your speed. but they have no numbers to show for it. I'm like, okay, so they said you need to improve your speed, but they didn't get a baseline fly 10 number, and then they didn't look at where you ended. Okay, so they're just making this up because you're probably the slowest on the team and it's just a cop out excuse. Oh, you just need to work on your speed. But
Hmm.
what if that player had improved their speed if you had tracked their baseline and looked
Hmm.
at those small improvements over time? That is physical development. You have to track, at least for our girls ages 13 and up. The younger ones, it's more play. So that I'm not directing this to the younger ones, but at least ages 13 and up, we need to be tracking speed. We need to be adding weight to the bar. We need to be loading and
Hmm.
improving our strength. Development needs to be tracked.
Yep. I knew where you were going right away, and I was so happy you went there. Be, it's such a fallback. She needs to work on her speed. As soon as a parent goes to a coach and says, "Hey, you know," or the player goes to the coach, which we always encourage, says, "Hey, what do I need to do to get more playing time?" Well, you need to work on your speed,
And then Dave, there's no recommendation on how to do that too. That's
right?
the problem. And this is where coaches can really, again, refer out, hey, I know a
Hmm.
guy or I know a strength coach who can really help you improve this, but there's
Hmm.
no solution given. And the kid's just like, oh, I'm just slow. Like it just is what it is.
Well, also, and you and I have talked about this recently. If we actually tested her and tested her teammates, there are times where she may come in top five, right? But where she's coming off as looking slow is game IQ. She's not reacting. That's part of human development, is putting these kids in situations where they have to react versus rehearsed drills, right? Where the reaction is minimal. The requirement for reaction is minimal. I just don't, from my standpoint, because I'm in it on the development side, I don't get it. And I do understand, like, it's the eye test. She looks slow. She's always late to 50-50 balls. Well, maybe it's her reaction time in her brain, right? Maybe it's not that her technique is off in terms of her ability to decelerate and then reaccelerate to get to the ball or to make that long run. Um, but to your point, we won't know that if we don't test them. We need to have objective data to look at. And I am a big proponent of doing both. If we just look at speed, so it's like, say, a flying 10, or I like to do rolling 10s as well, especially in the beginning because it mitigates injury just starting from zero, right? A lot of coaches, which it's okay if they're warmed up, they just like to go right to our, let's do a 40, right? From a stop position. Whatever we're doing, 5-10 fives, flying tens, get some data there. But I'm also a big proponent of using a rate of technical ability on things. Like, all right, let's do a 5-10-5, but then have someone who knows how to evaluate spinal posture, foot positioning, um, angles of the ankle, knee, and hip. Like, these are technical aspects of decelerating and things that we can help teach the kids to do better at. We can coach them up on that. So just with better technique, they get faster. That's the other big mistake is Erica needs to be faster. That doesn't mean Erica just needs to run more, right? Especially when it turns into conditioning because there's no rest in between, which is a whole nother topic, right? To work true speed, you need full rest in between. If you're just going, go as hard as you can, jog back, go again, that's conditioning. That's different. It's a different animal. And, clubs and coaches, they're not going to know the difference of that. We don't expect them to, but there needs to be more education so that they can have a better perspective, not just have a fallback of a vague, you need to work on your speed. Which, and this is segue to another topic. I really dislike when they do that to bench players. And you
Yeah.
also mentioned this in the blog.
Mhm.
Like there there's a huge disservice to bench players on teams. They actually need some conditioning work because they're not getting the reps in practice, most likely, and certainly not getting enough game time to they're getting out of shape during the season. They're getting
And
slower,
how will they
weaker, and
ever break
deconditioned.
through?
They
They'll
won't.
never get into the starting lineup.
Right. So that's also a huge part of long-term player development. If it's not one of your impact players, one of your starting 11 or your starting nine, if it's U12, what are you doing for those girls that will help them develop and catch up? I've always said this to the teams I've personally coached. We're as good as our weakest player. We're as fast as our slowest player. We're going to lift everybody up. And you have to have a system in place to do that. And I think that's another big void.
Yeah. And I think with the bench players who never see the field and they're getting so detrained, I think the responsibility is on the coach to educate the bench player on, okay, how can we help you get into the starting lineup? Here are the very specifics you need to work on. So, with the
Mhm.
technical piece, if it's a forward and you need to turn to pressure better and get shots off quicker, then yeah, she needs to take responsibility and work on that on her own, but she won't know unless you give her specifics. It can't just be this vague, oh, you just need to work on your skills or you just need to get faster. It's like, well, give me actual specifics. And I think the coach, as far as the conditioning, I think they can take responsibility for that. And I've seen the college programs do an amazing job with this with their bench players where they'll run them right after a game. They do this in
Hmm.
pro women's soccer too, where they'll do shuttle runs or they'll do repeat sprints at the end to mimic what the starters got as far as those sprint demands in the game so
Hmm.
that the bench players are staying conditioned and fast. And I think coaches can really take the lead on that and really educate players, hey, here's what you can do after the game. We'll all do it together. I think this is a huge opportunity for coaches to really develop the bench players. And maybe for the parents listening, like take note of this and have your girl, maybe work with someone else separately to develop a post-game conditioning program. I mean, there's ways around this, but there's hope for the bench players to still develop. And I think it makes me sad to see with these higher level teams where parents are paying thousands a year for their daughter to sit on the bench and get deconditioned. It's like she's not really given that education on how to break through. And then once she's given that education, she also can take responsibility and begin to develop. And I just see oftentimes bench players are just kind of just brushed to the side and given vague feedback and they just don't know what to do.
Yeah, they end up being bench players, and that becomes also their identity within the game. I'm just a bench player. And they're kids. They don't know how to break through, right? For the most part, the ones that do, those are those special kids that are so intrinsically motivated that as they develop and do things that help them develop on their own, those are the kids that have the longer term success where, where did this girl come from? And now she's a U17, U18, and she's a starter. She's an impact player. She's been behind the scenes working, 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 working. But those kids are few and far between. No- To put context to my comment about we're as strong as our weakest player or we're as fast as our slowest, one of the things I mean by that is if one of our starters goes down, i.e., knee injury, concussion, um, has a wedding to go to that weekend, so we don't have her, available for our tournament this weekend, who's next in line? And is that a big drop off for the team because they're deconditioned and they haven't had the reps that they deserve being on that team? to be ready to go, right? And that again, that also plays into the mental performance side of the game, in my opinion. The communication with those bench players, be ready. I know it might not seem like you're going in the game, but it could happen at any minute, and we need you. The other area that we really need you is in practice. You make our team better if you push our starters, right? But if you have this identity and this perception, I'm just a bench player and I'm not going to get playing time anyway. Why should I try as hard and I can just sit on the side and wait and I don't get reps the starters get? No, they need help navigating that because that's not just happening at U17 8 and U18 at the ECNL level. That's happening at the U12 level.
Hmm.
Like I talk to these parents where they're traveling, you know, subs like substantial distances to go to tournaments to watch their daughter on the bench and be upset. It's like, what are we even doing? So that might be a good segue to talk about, is that the best situation
Yeah,
for that player?
when to leave the best team and go to a lower level. I think
Yeah.
this is a good discussion because you want your kid to be on a team coming back to the player development where they're truly developing.
Hmm.
And I can give an example. So when I turned 14, I switched to the best travel team in the state of Maryland. So I was a small fish in a big pond when I got to this team because every girl was good. We had like national players on our team.
Hmm.
And I didn't start. I didn't play a whole lot at first, but coming back to that development and the coach being clear, my coach said to me, "Hey, you need to work on this, this, and this. You need to work on your first touch going forward and taking on defenders as an outside midfielder." So, okay, cool. I worked on that on my own because I had the motivation and I wanted to
Hmm.
break through. And, I was a bench player for a little bit, I would say a couple of months, but I stuck it out because I'm motivated by challenge. I think you also have to know your kid. I stuck it out, and I also really enjoy the development I was getting at practices. I love playing with national team players. I loved our technical coach. I loved our head coach. Every practice, I felt I became better. Like it was quality training. So even though I wasn't playing in the games, the practices definitely made up for it. So you have to think
Hmm.
about that too. How is the practice structure? Is your daughter really developing? And then after I got the reps on my own, then I got into the starting lineup and I thrived. But I think some girls thrive in that challenging environment and they're willing to stick it out and work on it if they're a bench player. But then other girls, they're like, I'd be happier on a lower level team because I get to be a leader. Maybe I'm a captain. I'm playing every minute of every game. So you
Hmm.
just have to know your daughter, I think, in this situation. There's no right or wrong. And one more thing I'll mention because I know you want to chime in, but the team chemistry is important to some people too. And for me, when I was on this high level team, we were all friendly, but we weren't best friends like my lower level team was. So that was a hard transition. But for
Hmm.
me, I was okay with it. I just wanted the quality training and the quality coaching and development. And I was thinking about college soccer at that point. I was like,
Hmm.
here's my end goal. And yeah, I do need to go to some of these showcases at this point. I'm 14 years old now. I got to start thinking about this. So, like, for me, I was willing to put up with that. We didn't have mean girls or drama. It just was we weren't best friends. It
Right.
just was everyone got along. We got to practice. It was strictly business, and that was it. But some
Hmm.
girls need that connection piece, which is fine too. So I think everyone has different values when it comes to what team they want to be on.
I agree. I feel like you framed it really well. It takes perspective, and everybody's situation is different. There's no, if you're not playing, you should drop down,
Yeah.
or if you want to play in college, you should just play on the best team. And I think we really fall into that trap in the United States where she really loves it and she wants to play in college. And so the parent really does everything possible to get her on that best team, right? And then she just never sees the field. And she might be a really good player. She was a starter for her rec town team, the travel team for her town. She's like the best player in her town. And, you know, just in terms of where she is in her development, maybe she's hitting a little bit of a plateau, and that's okay. But she needs to play the game and play it with joy and passion to get better. And s- sometimes the best team, in the best league, sometimes it has nothing to do with the badge on your arm. Now, I'll say this, the top leagues tend to get more coaches and more exposure for the kids when they play in certain tournaments. Okay. I I have two kids that play college sports that are my own, and well, one's graduated. And I've helped I don't know how many kids that have gone on to play college soccer. I've never, and I've talked to a lot of coaches as you have, never has a coach asked what league you play in or what team you play in the construct of your club. Like to say, Erica, it's nice to meet you. Your film looks good. I'm interested in learning more about you and seeing you play. Do you play on the best league? Are you on the top club team in your particular club? They don't ask those questions, right? So there's that side of it. I have two current day stories that I think could help too. One is family that was chasing the best team. They're a Florida team chasing the best club team. She was, and I've seen some film. She's arguably the best player on her club team, on her current, what they call her old club team. They start out the one of, if not the best clubs in northern Florida, that's 3 hours away from their house to play for that top team. She went to that team, and the reason they called me was to get advice on what to do because she wasn't playing. Confidence was going down. And when she was going into the game, she was hesitating, wasn't playing like herself, which is normal, right? It's a new team, new girls, highly competitive. That team's already established. And I'm like, why the jump? That was my first question and not so many words. Why the jump and why at 14 years old? Right? Let her continue. Well, she really wants to play in college. Okay. Who's gonna what college coach is gonna see her play if she's on the bench? Right? So from a recruiting standpoint, from a long play, a long-term perspective, parents, we need to look at that, right? And put her in the best situation. And that's just part of that perspective, right? Different girl, also a Florida girl, just switched to a different high school who is slated to win a state championship within the next couple years. They have a lot of upperclassmen. This public high school is big. They're a powerhouse soccer program. This girl is a sophomore, really great player. And of course she wanted to make varsity, right? And they just had their tryouts. Florida's on a, slightly different schedule than say like the Northeast. So she made JV, and I was so happy for her. And then I was like, Great, now we dominate JV.
Mm.
You play JV, you dominate, you become the best teammate and leader you can be on that JV team. And she was two sophomores made varsity, and they're both defenders. This person's a striker, right? That means that slot's filled by upperclassmen, established players. It's okay not to be on the best team right now,
Yeah.
right? You're One of those girls gets hurt that's a striker, you're probably going to get pulled up. because all week during tryouts, she got pulled up with the juniors and seniors for the scrimmages and all the drills. Like she's right there. But I really commend the head coach to saying, nope, I want this girl playing. I want this girl playing. I have my best 20 girls, 22 girls. She was on the bubble. I want her playing right now. I want her helping my program develop long term because she's also that type of player that is a leader. So that's the best situation for her. That's when it really works out well. And she's a sophomore, right? There's still plenty of time. So between that and her club team, and as she develops and starts to reach out to coaches, like we all want, not we all, there's this perception we need to be on the best team now, and we need to travel all over the country now if she's going to play in college, and it's just not the truth. And it causes a lot of stress. It causes plateaus. It causes hesitation, a lack of confidence. There's just there's a lot of issues with it.
Yeah, and it's not the answer for everyone. And I
Right.
think it really comes down to I think just writing it out, the pros and cons
Mm-hmm.
of this new high level team that you're thinking
Mm-hmm.
of switching to. Or if you're on a high level team already, what are the pros and cons of going down to the lower level team? And I think just understanding your daughter's values and what she wants. Does she want high quality practices, a coach she likes? Does she
Mm-hmm.
want to get along with the girls and be best friends with them? Does she want to get minutes? Or is she fine with being on the bench because she's getting good training? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many things to think about. And I really love these stories because I see these same stories every single day where
Mm-hmm.
girls will go to a lower level team and they become that leader and then they get that confidence again and they're communicating on the field and they're owning everything and it's so cool to see them thrive and I just had a girl who switched down from ECNL to ECNLR and I watched one of her games a few weeks ago and I just saw with her energy on the field. I was like, I turned to her parents. I'm like, she looks really happy out there. And her dad says to me, she's thriving. She's just playing soccer and having fun again. And I was
Which is
like,
what it's
that,
supposed to be.
yeah, I was like, that's amazing. And that's not to say like you can't have fun on a higher level team. I'll say, coming back to my story, I loved going to practices even though I wasn't playing in the games because I was
Mm-hmm.
getting quality training and I felt like I
Right.
always got a good workout. And I had hope. I knew that I could break into the starting lineup. It wasn't, something where I was like, oh, there's so much to spare. I'm never gonna get it. Like I had in the back of my mind, I can get it. And I think girls need to understand that too. Like, can you really break through? Are you going to own your development and do it? And I think that's important too. And I think it really comes down to, does your daughter look forward to practice?
That's a great comment.
It's a good litmus test because if she's not, then that means she's resentful that it's not high quality or she's not getting along with the girls. And it, like you said, with your one athlete, if she's driving 3 hours to practice and she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't look forward to it, I'm sorry, that's not worth it to me. I drove an hour to practice with Bethesda Soccer Club, but that was worth it for me because once I turned 16, I could drive myself and jam out on the way, and then I had fun at training. So that was worth it. And maybe that's your situation too. But if you're not looking forward to practice, please, why are you driving across state borders? Why does your daughter have to be on the best team if she's miserable and you're wasting hours in the car and
Mm-hmm.
she could be driving closer to a team she's really excited about and she's still developing as a player?
I think we can't. I'm so glad you said that because we're not giving any value, and I say we as a society when I say the word we. Our society is giving less and less value to their actual experience playing the game. And you just mentioned something that's really important. When I go to a game and I see one of my players that plays freely, with passion and joy,
Mhm.
they're magic.
It's
Like
the best.
I'm like, wow, she's playing so well. Mental performance is physical performance. When they hate practice, they hate their team, they hate their amount of playing time, and then they go out there and there's this pressure cooker in their brain of I can't make a mistake. It looks completely different. And those are when I talk to parents and they say, she's just not herself. She's not playing like herself. She used to be da 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 da. And then I want to kind of end with this. I also worry about their exit from the game. So whether it's when they're 18 and they don't play in college or after college, or even some kids when they turn pro, will they look back and be like, I loved playing soccer growing up? That's what that's really, really important. Not just so they can be like, oh yeah, it was all unicorns and butterflies and I love playing soccer. No, there's ebbs and flows, but I loved it so much. It was one of my biggest passions. And now I can exit from the game and use all those lessons I learned playing the beautiful game in life. And I'm mentally healthy. I'm emotionally healthy because of my experiences growing up, not mentally and emotionally damaged because I had adverse childhood experiences playing the game. And that's also happening more and more. We have to take a look at the long term as they develop as kids. What's that exit going to look like? I want my kids, meaning the kids that I train personally, to love exercise, to have a positive relationship with training, whether it's for a sport or general fitness, or they want to try a new sport, or they want to become a cornhole champion. I don't care what it is. When they're my age, I still want them working out because they have new goals and they enjoy the process of it versus what it's starting to turn into, and being on the best team when it isn't the right fit plays into that, and that worries me.
I think that's a really good place to end. And it really just comes down to, is she enjoying the team that she's on? And is she
Mhm.
looking forward to it? And parents, you'll know. You'll know with her body language, her
Mhm.
mood changes. You'll know and you'll see the signs and take them seriously and just check in and ask her, hey, would you be happier and feel like you're developing better at a different team?
Mhm.
Obviously, finish the season out. Don't quit on your team halfway through, finish it out, but start to have those discussions of where you might make your next move for the betterment of her development. I think that's really what it comes down to.
I agree 100%. I loved this discussion. I'm so glad we had it.
Yeah, this was a blast. And for those of you who are very curious about this blog that we wrote, just warning you, it's a little spicy for sure, but I will link it in the caption below. And Dave, I was actually shocked with how many people read it. I didn't realize people still read blogs today. I think
Mhm.
what we wrote was probably 3,000 words, maybe
Yeah,
more.
I think
But
so.
yeah, if you still read blogs, check it out. We'll link it below, and it's called What True Player Development Really Means. So definitely a controversial one, but we hope you guys enjoyed the discussion today and leave any comments if you have any questions and share this with someone who needs to hear this. I'll see you guys next time.